Later that night, I decided to go back inside, and for some reason, I was on the path of thinking. I was like, you know what? Maybe this god and goddess isn't real, and this witchcraft isn't real. But maybe I have these powers because at this time I had thought that I was able to do all these powers and all these incantations, and they were working. So I suddenly had the idea maybe I always had this power. Such a bad train of thought, but that's what I was thinking. And so I went inside, and instead of doing the normal incantations or anything, I decided I'm going to do what Nostradamus did. He would take a flat surface and scry. He would stare at it until images appeared. And that was one of my favorite things to do because I was really good at it. I would see things in the past and the future, supposedly. I don't think it was ever real, but nonetheless, at the time, I did. So I decided maybe I could find answers to what had just happened by scrying. And I'm going to do it myself because I have these powers. I don't need to pray for them. So I sat in my bedroom, and turned on the light, grabbed this reflective object, and I'm staring at it, waiting for new images to appear. And everything started doing like it always did. I would see some kind of foggish in there, a foggish setting in the reflective object. But then it changed. Suddenly it became dark, and it looked like I was looking in a cavern. And as I was looking at it, it suddenly appeared as if flames were shooting up from the bottom. And this beast is all I could say. It looked like he suddenly stood up where I was only able to see his chest and his head, but he stood up out of the flames, and it looked like a human with a goat head and these ram horns. And he stood up and he turned to me as it, in the object, and he turned to me. And at first his eyes opened wide like he was shocked that I was looking at him. And I mean, I was beyond shocked. But then there's that shock turned into eyes of anger and hatred. Like it turned from being shocked that I was looking at him to now it was furious I was looking at him. Uh,
Mm.
I was so frightened. I took the object and I threw it at the wall in my room, and it smashed on the wall. So at this point, I'm terrified. Not only did I just have this weird, thing happen to me outside, but now I'm seeing these goat men in the very things that I loved to do, and I thought I had the power to do, and instead I'm seeing these creatures. And as I'm sitting there in the middle of my room, I had this thought. I was like, maybe I never had these powers. Maybe it was this thing trying to trick me all along. And as I was thinking this, I looked up at my library of stolen books, and at the very end was a Bible. I was a pack rat when I was a kid. Anyone had something in the house, and if they were throwing it away, I take it and stash it. And someone was getting rid of this Bible for some reason, or maybe it was just laying around, but I, for some reason, took it and stashed it with all my books. And I looked at that Bible, and suddenly, for some reason, I said out loud, it's like, I think I'm going to get rid of all of these books and read that Bible. No idea why I said it. I never thought of it. I never opened that thing, but I said it out loud. The moment I said that, the light in my bedroom turned off. And as I turned around to see why my light went out, something punched me so hard, I flew through the air into the wall. If you brushed your knuckle against it, you would be bleeding badly. That's how rough of a wall it was. I was punched into it. And I slammed into the wall, and before I even landed, something punched me again back across the room. And this happened over
Wow.
and over, punching me, flinging me back and forth like a rag doll. Finally, I lost consciousness. And when I finally opened my eyes, I was laying flat on the ground. As I looked up, I couldn't move my hands or my head. I could only move my eyes. But I did notice that everything was more bright. Like, even though I was in a dark room, I was able to see clearly. It was like I was seeing purples and blues. Only now do I have a more of an understanding from people who have had near-death experiences and came back. They said that everything is more vibrant. You see more colors. Even space has color, and that's what it was like. But I didn't know that back then. I didn't even think of death until that point, and I had no concept of spirit of your soul or anything. As I was laying there, I looked up. I was able to look at my head above my head, where I had a sofa in my bedroom, and I seen a body laying there, motionless. And as I focused, I realized it was me. I was looking at
Wow.
I was looking at my dead body sitting there on that couch, lifeless.
Wow.
Then I looked down at my feet, which were facing towards the doorway of my bedroom, and there was this creature or man or something. It was humanoid standing at my feet. He'd never turned to me. He faced away, but I could tell that he was at least like almost 7 feet tall. He had no clothing on. His skin was like a putrid green with boils all over it. As far as I could tell, I seen his small ears. He had smaller ears, but his arms were, abnormally long. He suddenly grabbed my ankles without even bending down. He didn't bend or anything. He just grabbed it. His arms are long enough. And he started dragging me out of the bedroom. He grabbed me, my soul, and started dragging me out of the bedroom into the living room. And in the middle of the living room, even though I couldn't move my head, I was able to still see all around me. I was able to see things. Only now, later did I understand that the soul could actually see in 360. But at the time, I had no idea. But I was still able to see things even though I couldn't move my head. He was dragging me, and in the middle of the living room where I used to do things like Ouija boards and tarot card readings and all my other incantations. Sorry, Mom. I would do it in the middle of the living room, and in the middle of the living room was this pit. This, like, all I could say was almost like a cavern going down with a stairwell. And something in me knew that if he brought me down there, I was never coming out. I had this sense of fire, even though I didn't see it, but I had a sense of fire, and and I was beyond terrified. I was trying anything I could to try and move and make myself get up and fight, but I was so terrified. And he was dragging me to the middle of the living room, and suddenly something grabbed me from behind, yanked me back, and slammed me back into my body. I'll tell you what, that was the most painful experience. This thing hurt. It was like every beating I had just endured, all the pain shot into me at one shot at that very moment. Went from off switch to an on. And I leaped up in the air, utter pain. I am screaming at that point. And as I opened my eyes, I realized I couldn't see. I don't know if it was that my eyes just didn't turn on yet, or if I was literally being blind, or if I was blind, but I could not see. Everything was black. So I stood up in the middle of my room, trying not to lose my balance because I couldn't see anything. And I was punched again, one more time, into the wall, and I landed on my bed. And as I sat up, I suddenly heard laughing, hysterical laughing all around me, but more like maniacal laughing. And if you remember when I had told you I had seen that light that my girlfriend at that time had done this spell, and I seen this figure, that started happening again. I started seeing the silhouette, like when you close your eyes after looking at a light, you see those images. That's what I was seeing, but it suddenly started taking the shape of this hideous old man, I guess. If you ever watched a Garfield Halloween Adventure, the old man at the end, it looked just like him. Almost, if you can imagine that. It was very similar to him. Many chins, bald, old, wriggly, but he was pure white in the middle of the blackness. It was right in front of me, and he was laughing hysterically at me as if I learned nothing from what had just happened. You know, it didn't matter what happened. It felt like I was his, and I was not going to escape, and that this was just a fluke, and I was his regardless. And as he continued laughing, suddenly it faded, and my eyesight returned. So at this point, you know, I hear the laughter fading in the distance, and I leaped up in the middle of my room, and I'm terrified. I'm like looking around. I'm thinking I'm probably bloody beyond belief because, man, I was hurting. But I was too scared to run out. I was too scared to sit down. I didn't know where to go because it was all around me. Then I started hearing as if like the laughter was returning from a distance, and it started coming back, and I started panicking, thinking, oh my gosh, it's returning. Suddenly something grabs my knees and slams me onto the ground face first on my knees, puts my head on the ground, and next thing I know, I'm speaking. My lips are moving, and I am speaking. I'm praying. I've never prayed a day in my life other than to these false gods, but I've never prayed. Never mind what I was saying. It was like I wasn't in control. Something was making me pray, and all I was saying was, I am sorry, God, please forgive me. I promise to change my life. And I kept saying this while I was on the ground. I was being forced to say this out loud. And as I was saying that, the laughter finally faded away and it became silent. After that had happened, whatever was holding me down released me. Today, I believe it was my guardian angel forcing me to pray for the first time because I didn't know how to. It was so foreign to me.